Hi, welcome. Welcome to all that are here and out in Zoom land. I asked Louise this morning to start with the old gospel ballad. There's a Balm in Gilead. And I don't know if you could have heard the music to that, but I want to just read a couple of the words, why I thought it was important. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the weary soul. Sometimes I feel discouraged and think my work is in vain, but then the Holy Spirit revives my soul again. So my talk today is on meditation. And so meditation and silence, and so I'm going to keep going back to the indwelling spirit and how it revives us, how it nurtures us, how it pulls us out of the present discouragement of what the presence that we're going through right now. And the last couple days have been really intense for me. I don't know about you, but really for me, I was in a 2-day workshop by Zoom for counselors on trauma and resiliency, and after 2 days on Zoom, I felt traumatized because it was really difficult to be on Zoom 2 days. But they did talk a lot about being real with trauma, real with what's going on in the world, so then we can come to a regeneration, a way of being with all that's going down, either politically or with the COVID virus, with poverty, with race relations, these types of things. And so we're going to keep threading back through this talk to the well of support that we have through meditation and through coming back to the silence. The other things that kind of surprised me that fell into my field, I love how things fall into your field when you're supposed to be doing a talk soon, was on PBS. There was a special about the Freedom Riders, and that was in the early 60s, 1961 it started, and it was a group of black and white people in the United States that started riding buses to get through the Deep South to try to eliminate desegregation. And it was the political turmoil of the time they were talking about it and what caused it to be impactful. And so one of the buses got flamed and smashed, and thankfully people didn't die, but they got really shook up, and the amount of hatred and bitterness that was present in our country at that time, that still has shadows, of course, today, really got me to thinking. And it wasn't until people from all over the United States started to funnel in and join that movement to where they could no longer contain the amount of buses that had protesters for this movement. And it was all done very non-violently. That non-violence has to be the winner here. But it ended up, from the very exhaustion of this original group, that the outpouring came from literally all over the United States. People would fly down and take the bus to join these Freedom Riders so that no longer could there be desegregation. And how it had to shaken the government at that time, and it was Bobby Kennedy at the time, enough to really get on board with this as a real problem here. And so that was part of what fell into my last 3 days with the trauma workshop, and then this 2-hour documentary on the Freedom Riders on the bus. And then the next thing that fell into my lap last night was the movie The Way We Were, if you remember that. it was probably done in the early 50s, but Barbara Streisand was the political zealot, and she had the enthusiasm, and she was always out campaigning for some things. And it brought up the problems of the definition of communism and the fear-basedness of that, and the harm and the trauma towards Hollywood to try to break free of some stereotypes. And so those are the three kind of interwoven things that brings me to this. The day today about meditation and coming back to silence. I've had a lot of really nice experiences in my spiritual and professional career to mix it up with all sorts of people around healing. And when I was at Antioch, New England, up in New England for graduate school, there was this team of earth scientists. And they did a study in an enclosure. And what an enclosure is a roped off section. It was 2 miles wide of forest. And they study what happens when man doesn't interfere with it, or if man does interfere. So they went, this is a crazy bunch of scientists that I kind of like. So they went to the center of this enclosure, and they named this one tree the mother tree, okay? And they took samples from all the leaves, from the core all the way out to the perimeter of this enclosure, and they got the basic chlorophyll levels of how the trees were sustaining, and it was done in the summer, so they had pretty good chlorophyll levels. Then what they did is they took those old, those wading pool sticks that are styrofoam, kind of like rubber bats, and they took it, and this team of scientists for 5 minutes hit the tree in the middle on the trunk, and they said it was a bad tree. And they said it was ugly and it was a bad tree, and they kept whacking it with this rubber implement. Then they waited 10 minutes and they checked the chlorophyll levels of the tree from the mother, what they called the mother tree, out to the edge of the enclosure. And within 10 minutes, the chlorophyll levels in the leaves drastically reduced. Just from 5 minutes of these scientists smacking at a tree, telling it was ugly. Okay, and so of course they thought maybe that was not right, and so they double-checked the chlorophyll levels, and it was a drastic reduction in the vitality, the chlorophyll levels in the leaves. So then the same bunch of scientists, I love them, they went and they made it up to the tree. And they petted the tree, and they said that they were sorry, that they didn't mean to do it, it was just an experiment, and please be healthy again. They wanted the tree to be healthy again. And they took just 5 minutes, this little group of scientists loving up the tree. Okay, they waited 10 minutes, and then they checked chlorophyll levels. Well, this time the chlorophyll levels were far beyond the rate they were in the beginning. Okay, so the mother tree in the middle, the resonance of that, even after it had been misused, but the loving up of that amplified the chlorophyll levels, not only from the mother tree, but all the way out to the edge of the enclosure. So that's why when we tap into meditation and into the silence, when our intention is the loving presence, it's way beyond anything personally we're doing. It extends far-reaching. And have our intention be with, may this meditation, may this peace, may this source I'm touching into be for everybody, then that in turn is what's being created. And I think that's so important for me when I get discouraged with all these traumatic things that are boiling up to the surface that absolutely need our attention and care, that I'm not so exhausted. That I don't think it's all about me. I think it's about me joining the source of wisdom and goodness, and then asking to join it with everyone. That's my intention from my heart. My heart wants this, not just for me. My heart wants it for everyone. So that's how I'm weaving those two in. And I think it was a study too, and I forget if it was Philadelphia or Boston. It was a big city that did similar, with a real troubled neighborhood that was having a lot of trouble with murder and gangs and violence. And they put a meditation center in without even telling people what they were doing, and started running meditations around the clock just for peace in the neighborhood, and then to extend out to the state. And they decreased the violence in their neighborhood after just a couple weeks, without even announcing it or without even so much as talking about it. So to tap in this divine power that we have, that's one with Source, and then heart-wise want it, meta practice, we want it for everyone. It's not just for us. So I was told this metaphor, I guess you'd call it, from a guru. Her name is Amaji from India. And she was talking about that there was two ways to enlightenment. And she referred to it as, remember those really, really tall coconut trees with the coconuts up at the top? And she said the first way to enlightenment is kind of like you climb and you climb and you climb. And you climb and you climb and you want this further knowledge, and you climb and you climb, meaning it's an intellectual pursuit. And you're climbing and you're trying to figure it out, and you're trying and you're climbing. And then finally you get to the fruit up at the top, and then you're nourished. That was the first way. The second way, she said, was a lot more like an apple tree. And we're doing harvest here in Missoula now, so this is a good one. With the apple tree, the knowledge that you can do is you can pick up the apple off the ground. You can pick up the apple off the ground and you can be nurtured by it while you start to climb the apple tree. And even before you start to climb, you can pick apples off the lower branches. You don't have to be at the top of the apple tree to get the benefit of apple tree. And then, after you've picked the lower ones, then you can start to climb for the higher ones, the higher sustenance. And so I liked this metaphor because of what's a term called visionary activism, to envision our activities of nourishment and how it supports and sustains us. So I really liked that metaphor I heard. And I was told at my naturopath's office. My naturopath told me this. I thought that was cute. So that fell in my lap for the talk today too, is that there's a way to be fed all along. There's apples on the ground. There's a daily meditation, okay? We can join others, what I would think of as the lower fruit. With here at Unity, we can pray together, we can meditate, we can open our hearts that this is for everyone. And we can continue our ascent to the higher branches through our readings, through our study of prophets, through our studies of scriptures, through our studies of that, and thus attain an even fuller level of this divine knowledge. So I really liked that concept. So now I want to turn to the Urantia book, and I really like this. My husband, Mike, brought this to me, and it's about how Jesus doesn't tell us how to be religious or spiritual. And I really like that because sometimes, especially in our headstrong culture, we get to comparing our spiritual path with others. We get to comparisons, and that's not meant to be. So I want to read you a little bit of this just because I think it's really lovely. James, the apostle, grasped the thrilling truth that Jesus wanted his children on earth to live as though they were already citizens of a completed heavenly kingdom. That Jesus wants that for us. He wants us to know that there's always already a completion here. We have to tap into it. Then he goes on. Jesus knew men were different, so he taught his apostle. He constantly exhorted them to refrain from trying to mold the disciples and believers according to some set pattern. And here at Unity, we really work on that. That our patterns aren't the same, our paths aren't the same, but they're all cherished and they're all nurtured in the divine. He sought to allow each soul to develop in its own way, a perfecting and separate individual before God. In answer to one of Peter's many questions, the Master said, I want to set men free so that they can start out afresh as little children upon a new and a better life. Jesus always insisted that true goodness be unconscious, in bestowing charity, not allowing the left hand to know what the right hand does. The three apostles were shocked this afternoon when they realized that their master's religion had no provisions for spiritual self-examination. All religions before and after the times of Jesus, even Christianity, carefully provided for conscientious self-examination. But not so with this Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus' philosophy of life is without religious introspection. The carpenter's son never taught character building. Isn't that interesting? He taught character growth, declaring that the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. But Jesus said nothing would prescribe self-analyzing as a prevention from conceited egoism. And then down at the bottom of this region, it said the Master offered no solutions for non-religious problems of his own age or for any subsequent age, including our age here. Jesus wished to develop spiritual insight into the eternal realities as to stimulate the initiative in this originality of living. He concerned himself exclusively with the underlying and permanent spiritual needs of the human race. He revealed the goodness equal to God. He exalted love, truth, beauty, and goodness as the divine ideal and eternal reality. The Master came to create in man a new spirit, a new will to impart new capacity for knowing the truth, experiencing compassion and choosing goodness, the will to be in harmony with God's will, coupled with the eternal will urge to become perfect, even as the Father is perfect. So in Jesus' teaching, there's no way to get through this COVID stuff. There's no particular prescription except for loving and kindness and compassion and staying part of community. And so we really emphasize that in meditation and be willing to come to the silence so that we're not so depleted that we're one with Source, that we're one with other and not in this by ourselves. So I want to take extra time with the meditation today since I talked about silence. Isn't that funny? talking about silence. Anyway, so I want to take extra time with our meditation today, and I'm going to invite Louise in the background to be playing that song, Be Still and Know That I Am God. And we know this song, it's Be Still and Know That I Am God. And that's the only words. And so if whatever I said today resonates in any way, if we can pull that in now for sustenance and join the stillness as we come into our meditation time, and just imagine in this stillness that we're the mother tree in the enclosure, huh? And that we're the ones getting loved up by ourselves. That we're the ones that are telling ourselves that, yeah, honey, it's been rough. Ooh, it's been chaotic. That's true. I'm sorry it's been hard. Yeah. So just come on in. And go ahead, Louise. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that it's right here. Fall back into what you know. The truth. That love and connectedness is the antidote, is the oxygen. That there is no lack. That today, in this moment and always, there is enough. That we are enough in our spiritual pursuits. And in our willingness to want that for everyone. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that the chaos can fall away. That there is no lack. Allowing our hearts to fill with this prosperity and wishing it for others. that truly there is enough for everybody. There is no lack. Releasing any struggle, there is enough. There is no lack. And very gently now we'll start making our way back into consciousness here. Fuller consciousness of where we're sitting, who we're with. Might take a look around.